He was 21 years old, already one of the most wanted men in the American West. And before the summer ended, Billy the Kid would be dead. His real name was not Billy the Kid. He was born Henry McCarty in New York City around 1859. Over the course of his short life, he used several names, including William H. Bonney, which is what the newspapers printed. Billy the Kid was just a nickname given to him because he looked so young, thin, baby-faced, barely over 5'7", smooth-skinned and boyish, even as he became one of the most wanted men in the American Southwest. There is only one widely accepted authentic photograph of him in existence. In it, he looks like a teenager who wandered into the wrong part of history. His childhood was brutal. His father likely died early, and his mother moved constantly through frontier towns trying to survive. She died of tuberculosis when Billy was only 15. He had no one left, no family, no safety net, nothing. After that, he was completely alone. He drifted into gambling houses, saloons, ranch work, and eventually crime. A poor orphaned kid with no stability and no one looking out for him. The frontier had a way of finishing those stories quickly. His first killing came at just 17 years old. In August 1877, near Camp Grant, Arizona, he shot blacksmith Francis Windy Cahill after a brutal bar fight. Some ruled it self-defense, but it marked the beginning of his violent reputation and put him on the run for the first time. The moment that truly made him famous was not a robbery or a shootout. It was a war. In 1878, Billy joined the side of an English rancher named John Tunstall in what history calls the Lincoln County War. This was not cowboys shooting each other over nothing. It was a violent economic and political conflict between rival business factions, corrupt lawmen, and powerful ranchers fighting for control of New Mexico territory. It was closer to a small private war on the American frontier than anything else. When Tunstall was murdered in cold blood by a sheriff's posse on February 18, 1878, Billy helped form a group called the Regulators to hunt down the men responsible. He was involved in several killings during that period, including the ambush of Sheriff William Brady in April of 1878. The war reached its peak at the Battle of Lincoln in July of 1878. For 5 days, Billy and the Regulators were trapped inside a burning house owned by a man named Alexander McSween. The building was on fire. Gunshots were coming from every direction. They escaped under cover of darkness, while the structure went up in flames around them. Pure chaos. And Billy walked out of it. Now here is something that surprises most people. Billy the Kid claimed he killed 21 men, one for every year of his life. That number became part of his legend. But modern historians believe the number was heavily exaggerated by newspapers and frontier legend. The real number of deaths directly linked to him is probably somewhere between 4 and 9. He definitely killed people. But the Wild West newspapers loved sensational stories, and Billy was one of the biggest legends they ever had to work with. What made him even more interesting was his personality. People expected a cold and brutal killer. What they found was someone friendly, funny, charming, and surprisingly likable. He played cards, he danced at parties. He flirted constantly. He reportedly spoke fluent Spanish from growing up around Hispanic communities in the Southwest. Even some of the men hunting him admitted he was a good kid despite everything. Many locals actually protected him from the authorities rather than turning him in. That charisma kept him alive far longer than his choices should have allowed. But it could not last forever. In December 1880, Sheriff Pat Garrett captured him. Billy was tried, convicted of murder, and sentenced to hang. The date was set. It looked like the story was over. Then came the most legendary moment of his entire life. On April 28, 1881, while being held in the Lincoln County Jail awaiting execution, Billy somehow got hold of a revolver. He slipped his handcuffs. He shot Deputy James Bell. He grabbed Deputy Bob Ollinger's own shotgun and blasted Ollinger from a second-story window. He then walked out, stole a horse, and rode out of town while the entire population of Lincoln stood watching. Billy the Kid briefly controlled the very town that was supposed to hang him. Townspeople were too stunned or too scared to stop him. Some witnesses claimed he was laughing and singing as he rode away. It instantly made him a national legend. But Pat Garrett refused to let the story end there. By then, Billy the Kid had become the most famous outlaw in the Southwest. Garrett tracked Billy for months across New Mexico. On the night of July 14th, 1881, Garrett found him at Fort Sumner. Billy walked into Pete Maxwell's dark bedroom and spoke his last words in Spanish. "Quién es?" Who is it? Garrett, hiding in the darkness, shot him dead. Billy the Kid was barefoot and unarmed. He was probably only about 21 years old. He was buried the next day in Fort Sumner. Almost immediately after his death, rumors spread that he had survived. Over the following decades, multiple old men came forward claiming to secretly be Billy the Kid, living under a new identity. None of the claims were ever fully proven, but the mystery kept the legend alive for over a century. Within months of his death, Pat Garrett wrote a book about him that turned Billy into a folk hero across the country. Some historians believe Billy's legend grew so large because many ordinary people in New Mexico viewed the Lincoln County War as corrupt businessmen crushing smaller ranchers and settlers. They saw Billy not as a criminal, but as someone who had fought back against a rigged system. Billy the Kid was not just an outlaw. He was a homeless orphan from New York who became the face of the Wild West and turned himself into an American legend before reaching the age of 22.